having a minor, but she's handling a PhD, and that's based on British women's liberation movement from the 1970s to the present day. And she's also teaching alongside training and consultancy work. So she's a well-known media commentator on feminist and social justice issues. She also was an individual winner on the Emma Humphreys Memorial Prize as well. Without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Finn. Okay.
Closing this wonderful conference, and thank you to all the volunteers who spent a year working on putting this conference together. So thank you to all of you for everything that you've done today. So our conference has covered a vast array of topics, all of which are feminist, all of which are feminist issues, because every issue is a feminist issue, because this imperfect world is our world too, and in it we have a 53% majority stake. There is nothing in politics, war, peace, culture, business, law, development that does not touch us too, despite the fact that we are so often unrepresented in these areas and in the decision makers who shape them. And that is why events like today are so important. Spaces where we can build on our politics, listen to our voices and ideas, and believe in the solutions that we already know we have. The conference has been open to all, it's been hugely well attended, and this indicates the strength of our movement and its rise over the past years since the early 2000s. And the last couple of years in particular have seen a sea change in the representation and visibility of feminism in our media and culture. Almost every day there seems to be some form of feminist response or commentary in our media, and this has come about through grassroots activism by activists like yourselves, through our collective movement, imaginative campaigns, public mobilisation and direct action. We have managed to direct attention to those issues we think are important. We have managed to make news and not just comment on it. And that too is a sign of a movement in resurgence, a movement with power, when we can do more than just firefight. We can be proactive, we can go on the offensive, we can dictate our own agenda. Now, there are many out there, of course, who find this offensive. They find the strength of our movement offensive. They are offended by the power of feminism. They are offended by women's autonomy at all. These are the people who try to silence women in social media, on Twitter and Facebook, in comments pages, on websites, on blogs, spreading hate and lies. It is not just that people disagree with our opinions, it is that they resent us having an opinion at all. Men voice their opinions in the media every day, and often they receive criticism as a result of that, but that's what debate is about, and when we walk out onto the pitch, we accept that too. But all too often people don't engage with women commentators on this level. And when I say people, I mean men. Too many men don't engage with women on that level. They quickly, so quickly, decline into threats, and specific threats, threats of sexual violence. This serves to remind women that they are there to serve men, and that they have strayed into intellectual territory or made claims to their autonomy that offend those who dare to presume authority over us. Threats of sexual violence are the lowest common denominator, which attempt to set in stone a chasm between women and men, which attempt to remind women that whatever their achievements, whatever their opinions, they are still women and thus can be objectified, humiliated, and terrorised by men as a group. Increases in sexual violence and increases in the sexual objectification of women actually follow women's advancements, follow women's equality gains, follow women's progress or incursion into previously male-only areas, be that areas of thought or practice. The purpose of sexualised violence and the representation of sexual violence in our culture is to put women back in their place to reduce women, in spite of everything we have managed to gain, to an object for the male gaze, an object that can be taken, stolen, used and broken. This violence occurs partly to alleviate the rage of men as a group, where that group perceives women's progress towards equality as an assault on their fragile superiority. It is attack as a form of superiority defence, based on the suppressed knowledge and very correct conviction that women are human too and will not be kept down forever. As we know, are not hollow threats. Too many women in this room will understand that. But that is precisely what so many men fail to understand. Not those woman haters who abuse and rape, they know what they do. But much more generally, those who from their vantage point or advantage point of male supremacy fail to understand that even if they don't mean it, even if they are just saying, even if they protect women, even if they would never do anything to hurt a woman, they hurt women with their sexism, their victim blaming, their so-called jokes and their casual threats. We cannot know who means it and who doesn't. We don't know who will follow through with their threats and who won't. We have to remember that and carry on thinking about the countless remarks, comments and asides from faceless men and boys who probably forgot their pathetic contributions the minute they hit send. Such is the luxury of male supremacy. Such is the luxury of having never felt like crying. Of this representation of sexual violence and the visibility of these threats is an inevitable kickback from male supremacy, or what feminists term patriarchy, and this is to be expected because it means we're doing our job, we're doing enough to be noticed. Feminism is a radical and revolutionary movement. Our women's liberation movement is a global political movement for the liberation of women and society based on equality for all. We seek to question, challenge and end male supremacy, and that is revolutionary. But any movement that threatens the status quo becomes a concern to the groups that benefit most from the status quo staying just as it is. And we must remember that nobody gives up power voluntarily. That is why our movement will be a constant struggle, may always be in struggle, certainly in our lifetimes here in this room. But the women who shaped our movement long before us, who smoothed the path for us to march here to our own moment in the spotlight, they knew then what we still know now, that nothing lasts forever and that change is inevitable. So let us not be apologetic about these radical facts of our movement. We don't need to apologise, for example, for women-only space, which makes us strong. We don't need to apologise for the fact that we want change and that things cannot stay the same and that that is a necessity for our future if we are to even have one. It is time then that we stopped adding disclaimers to our work, assuring people that they don't have to do anything differently, that they don't have to change, that feminism isn't a threat. Our movement is indeed a threat. It is indeed threatening. What is the point? What is the point of a social movement that doesn't envision a different world? What is the point of a social movement that doesn't try everything in its power to make that vision a reality? And also, what would be the point of a feminism that simply sought equality with unequal men? With men who face discrimination too, at every level, racism, homophobia, class oppression. With men who are underpaid, homeless, laid off, written off, filling up our prisons. With men who cling to violence as their sort of masculinity or control when all else has failed them. Who wants equality with that? No feminist that I know. And likewise, we are not calling for an equal inequality. So those of us who are opposed to so-called lads' mags and page 3, as many of us are, and as I am, because they are blatantly sexist, because they are blatantly gendered, because we don't go into shops and see rows of magazines portraying men in the same way. But that doesn't mean that we're advocating the sort of equality where men are also demeaned and objectified. And when we speak up... And when we speak up against such sexism, it is a political argument. It is not because we are prudish moralists or because we have a problem with nudity or sex. We know that objectification has nothing to do with sex and everything to do with sexism. And it is our movement that has fought for centuries for the right of women to enjoy and express their sexuality, free from the double standards which aggrandise men for sexual activity and shame women for the same. And this was in fact one of the 7 demands of our UK women's liberation movement, agreed in 1975, the right of all women to define their own sexuality. So we need to correct the myths that are told about our movement and our politics. We need to challenge the lies told about feminism. Not try to minimise our movement, not try to appease men, nor add disclaimers when we talk about male violence or the normalisation of pornography in the sex industry, that we don't mean all men, that feminism doesn't hate men, that men have nothing to fear from us. As if it isn't the case that we are the ones who have most to fear and that often it is them. As if it isn't us who have the most to lose. As if too many have not already been lost. Lives lost directly through the blunt use of violence, or lives affected indirectly through the violence of representation as nothing more than object. So to those who benefit in silence and varying degrees of privilege from the unequal and twisted status quo, we need to say, yes, you are right, feminism is a threat to you. Our movement is here to take away your power, the power you stole from so many, and our movement is here to change your world and save it for all of us. Fueled, of course, by one of the most popular lies told about our movement, the lie that feminism is man-hating, that feminists are man-haters. Feminism does not hate men. It contains a great respect for the humanity of all of us by pointing out what should be obvious, that all men are not this way or that all men are not violent or warmongering, and our complex political theory explains that male violence is in fact a form of social control that is profoundly political and not in the least biological. Another lie told about our movement is that feminism makes women into victims, that ours is a negative, pessimistic and disempowering movement, what some people call victim feminism. So let us be clear, it is not feminism that turns women into victims. It is the men who choose to abuse women, who choose to violate women, who presume a right to buy women. It is those men who make women into victims, not feminism. Feminism is here to stop that process. Feminism is here to end the violence of male domination. And we respond to individual experiences with the aim of collective change for all. So it is not pessimistic or negative to name our oppression. It is liberating. Ours is a movement of billions of women which says, no, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't because of what you were wearing. It wasn't because of who you dated. It wasn't because of how much you've been drinking. It wasn't because of how late you walked home. Ours is also a movement which feels every loss, every indignity. We feel every assault. Because this is about you, but also because it goes beyond you. It's about all of us. It's about every woman made to feel that she wasn't worth as much as a man, every woman made to hate her body, made to question and judge herself simply due to her sex, every woman denied opportunities or steered away from them, every woman made to feel she was lesser and second class. And what we all share as women, despite our vast diversity, is our experiences of sexism in a world of male supremacy. And what we should also share, but too often don't, is our involvement in a collective movement of resistance to that oppression. Homophobia, misogyny, and a lack of faith are what hold women back from identifying with one of the oldest and most powerful social movements the world has ever known, and that is their own. And it is up to all of us to challenge that misogyny, to restore the faith in our personhood, our potential, and our own humanity. For what is shameful about social justice? What is embarrassing about dignity and worth? What is wrong with demanding a stake in the world we have built? Feminism is only frightening to those who gain the most from oppression, to those who would stifle the human spirit and hold the world in stasis. And the rest of us really do have nothing to lose and everything to gain. A revolution still to finish and a world to win. Thank you very much for everything.